Fitzy here, back at it again. Been asked about rust around windows. I'm going to show you how to make panels to repair those rust around windows. Stick around. For our next project, what we have here is 72 Caprice. A lot of you have asked about repairing rust around windows. Well, there you have it. These were known for this because of the lowness of this section here. You just fill up with water level to here, and then if it never leaked inside, it just built up and then rotted out the corners. But as you can see here, right along here, there's a fair bit of rust going right along. That's not half bad going along there, and the other side is much the same thing, right? This here's, there's no holes in this, but I'd say when I finish cleaning it up, there's going to be holes in it. But what I'm going to do first is I got to clean this all up. I got to prep this. A lot of times these are pretty tricky. There's a lot of work involved in even starting to do the work. The problem you got is that you got to remove everything. This was a vinyl top car, as you can see. The customer removed it. He's not putting the vinyl top back on it no more. And what you got to deal with, the interior. If you got any holes up around here, this one here was good. I have some issues up front, but you got all the headliner out of it. Right? There's a lot of work involved in it. You got to strip all the interior out of it. My plan is here now is I'm going to clean all this up with a grinder along this top edge here. There's a lot of glue, material, everything here to see what I got. Get rid of the heavy stuff off it. And then I'm going to roll it out by the door and I'm going to sandblast these sections here. I hate sandblasting, but it's the only way you're going to get that clean. You can wire wheel all that, all you want, and it's not going to go nowhere. Now these little things here, you're not going to save them, okay? You can buy a spot kit and you can actually get them and weld them back on again. But all we've ever done with them is put them back on with a screw. And usually there's a little wax piece on the screw, because when you buy as a kit of these clips, they come with screws and there's a wax build-up on the screw that seals off the hole when you screw it on. So that's all I'm going to do with these here. I was just going to take a picture of where they're to and mark them. And then I'll just turn around later on. The customer can turn around and drill holes and put them back on when he's ready. But it'd be nice to get lots of paint in here first, right? Okay, I'm going to go clean that up now. Did I ever tell you how much I hate sandblasting? Look at all that, all over the place there. Oh, it's all over me. I hate the stuff. Alright, so I sandblasted everything, and I turned around then, went around and treated everything. I turned around and put everything in primer, as you can see. I got all the other repairs done on it. So all I'm left with now is to do this section here. Trick with this is now trying to figure out where to start to. Normally guys would take this and they start cutting stuff out of it. Again, this is my template. I'm not going to touch none of this. I'm leaving it all there until I got my panel made and everything is ready to go. I'm going to start cutting pieces now. I'm going to cut a piece for here, the flat section here, and I'm going to cut a piece for here that'll roll along here, and I'm going to cut a piece that'll roll along here. Now this here got some heavy pitting. You can see it up along here. Kind of hard to see there. There you go. You see the pitting and everything goes up along here. And it comes in down around here. I'm going to basically replacing all this right on down to here, coming right up to here, and then across here. So I'm going to take this entire corner down here. I'm not quite sure if I got to get into this or not. I'm going to try to see if I can stay away from it. But in the cases like this here, I always make this section first and weld it onto the car so I keep this seam. I'm a fanatic for factory seams. I grew up at a time when we filled everything, and I know in hot rodding and everything, guys fills everything and takes all the seams away. But every time I see seams gone on a car, I think there's black with filler. So that's just my take on it. So now we got the pieces here figured out. The biggest thing with this is here, you could probably take a piece of metal, bend it on a 90 and start trying to fit this. This got two shapes going on to it, right? Like this here is not flat this way, and it's not flat this way, right? So you're running into issues. If you take this here scrap piece of steel and just tries to line it up in there, right? It's not going to fit, right? Like you can see how much of a crown is in that. And then when you do it this way, you can see it's crowned again. So, for years I've tried bending up metal and shrinking it and fitting it and stuff like that, and I always found it was very hard to get a real nice fit. I started doing this piece by piece by piece section. I found it a lot faster and a lot quicker. Okay, I'm going to make this section here, then I'm going to make this section here and weld it to that section, and then I'm going to turn around and make an outer section here which got a bit of a roll on it. As you can see, it's not flat. See, it's got a bit of roll up. Rolls up the window. So if you cut all this out, you'd end up making this flat and you wouldn't have the shape or anything to go by here. But by leaving it here now, I'm going to have something to go by. I'm going to be able to duplicate this piece on top of it, because all the panels, this one in, this one and this one here, is all the same level. So when you cut it all out, it drops in, it will fit. So I'm going to go ahead now. I got this piece of metal here. That's all I does with it. I'm going to start trimming that up so that fits in there. Now, a lot have mentioned to me about making templates and that, but I've just grown to not do it. You can probably do it, make your own template. I just like doing everything freehand, always did. It's just something I picked up on. Right. So, I'm going to rough that in there now. I've had to trim it off here, and I've had to come back and taking a bit more off the bottom. I'm getting close. It's a little bit loose there, up in that corner. And then I rolled it, dropped it down here a bit on the back side. Take a bit off of there, and a bit more off up in here. Let's slide forward. You also notice that I'm using a larger piece. I like working with larger pieces. I've done it many times in other videos. And the reason for that, it's a lot easier to handle and work with. If you're working with a small strip, it's very hard to get it to fit. I'll cut this off later on. But for now, I'm leaving it big. I'm only worried about this inside edge, getting this to fit first. This outside edge here can be all worked after. It's fitting pretty good there. And I can fine tune that now, and I'm ready to put two of them together. What I'm noticing here now is that this corner here rolls back, and this corner here rolls up. So it's a bit tricky. So I got to bend this way, and bend this way to get this to fit properly. There's a bit more on that end. But I'm happy with that. I'll be cutting that off about there, and then I got to trim that off along there to fit down there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a piece out, and I'm going to make this piece. Okay, another piece, just trimmed off. Made it nice and long, a bit wider so I can work with it. Now I'm going to bend this here to go around that corner. So it'll fit in here. It's got a pretty big roll on it. You see the shape that this got now when you lay that in place. You actually see the way it rolls in on the back and it rocks. You can actually see it rocking on it. So I got to trim that now so that it fits flat down in there, because that's got to be down like that and that's got to be down like that. So it's a pretty complex shape, I can tell you that, to try to make out of one piece. Doing it this way, to me, makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to take this now and run the marker across it. All I'm doing, working on closing up this gap. That's why I got a lot of material on this. So I can actually, when it drops down, I still got lots up here. So now I've trimmed it up some. In along here, I've changed the shape of it. Going in along here, filed it and cut it a few times, as you can see here. Now I got it fitting pretty good. When you lay it in place like this, it's on an angle. On an angle this way here. It looks straight up and down right here now. I'll show you in a sec. But I'm happy with this piece now, and I'm happy with the other piece. So now what I got to do is I'm going to trim these down a small bit, both of them, so they're a lot easier to handle. I'm going to clamp them in place there now, and clean them up and weld tube them together. As you can see, the angle that it's on, it's not straight up and down. Looking across, you see the way that angle's right back. So I got a piece there now that's shaped like that. Never be concerned with trying to make perfect little pieces. When you get into small pieces, they got a tendency to want to move on you, move around a lot. When you're building small things like this here, it'll want to tweak and move around. When you're making a lot of larger pieces, that's not going to move. So you can get that to fit down here. You know you got a good fit. So like I've always found this faster than trying to make little templates and making little tiny strips. And then when you get it in there, you realize it's too short here or it's uphill too much here. I just fits it one side, fits it to one side, tack welds two of them together, welds the both of them together, and fits it in there, make sure they're fitting good, and then I'll worry about this section afterwards, right? So I'm going to go now and I'm going to trim these up a bit smaller now that I know I'm close to where it got to be. I'll make them so that they're easier to handle so I can clamp them in place, and then I'm going to clean all the paint and everything off them. So I got the two pieces all cleaned up and trimmed down smaller. I got them, they're still too big. You can see here, and I got this one just clamped in place. What I'm doing here now, I'm going to do the final fit on this here now. As you can see right here, this is tight here. Hard to get you in the right light here. See right here, it's tight right here. And then it gets wider as it goes up the top. And it gets wider as it goes along here. And it gets tight again right here. So what I got to do now is I got to trim these up and trim this up over here so this fits down this corner. One of the advantages of leaving the lip there is because we got something to go by. We're actually getting the proper shape to it now. If you had all this cut out, you'd have nothing to go by. So I'm going to trim this up here and back here and get this fitting down here nicer, down this inner edge. You can see when I put my finger there, you can actually see how far it's got to go down. Look. So I'm going to trim that up there now. Now I say trimming it. As you can see here, what I went and done is I got a little marker put. I marked it where I want it trimmed off. Now it's not a lot to trim off. All I'm using is a grinder, ear grinder. That's a 24 grit disc on that, with a backing pad. It's an air tool. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to grind it back. I'm doing is I'm grinding off the marker that I got there. So that's where I had the mark there and down here. See, all I use is a grinder under there and down there, and you'll get a nice tight fit. And if you haven't got a grinder, like an air one, you can use a flap wheel if you got one of them. But it's a lot easier to do it this way than trying to take a pair of tin snips and trim that up along there. So, because it'll leave a jagged edge along here with a pair of tin snips. And you get a nice smooth edge on that inside edge there. Now I think I'm close enough down here now. I got this fitting that it doesn't move anymore. I got a bit of a gap here. I boo-booed, so I grind too much off, but hey, I can always weld it. But I'm happy with the way it fits right along the edge there. Inside, that would be my inside corner. I'm not worried about these edges up here and the ends, what they're going to look, making them perfect, everything, nothing worried about that. All I'm concerned about is getting this plane and this plane on the right angle, so the inside edge is in the right location all the way down along here, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead now, I'm going to start on one end, and I'm going to push that together, I'm going to start welding this in here, while it's all clamped together in there, and make this here and this piece one piece. So, let's go weld that together now. Now all I'm doing here now is I'm going to fit this in place, push it down in that corner there, nice and tight, on a nice spot, and I'm just going to weld it on the inside. Careful to make sure that when you come to the corners that you get it all nice and fit nice down in here. Work your way around your edges. Make sure that's nice in them corners. Push that back so it brings up in the panel there. So here it is. I got it all tack welded together. Downside here, just tack welded on the inside. If you come out here now, you can actually see that it's actually going along that edge nicely. It's following the flow of the roof right along in there. I'll trim all that off after. Not concerned about it. It's nice that it's a bit longer because I'm probably going to want to cut it off here somewhere anyway and see if I can save this. The same one up here. I'll be cutting that off square. Right? But what I got to do now is, now that I got my inside edge figured out, I got this here in its place and this here in its place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to weld all this up inside here first, because it's better leave this clamped onto this and weld all this up and try to get away as much warpage as you possibly can, because if you take this off and bring this over on the bench now and weld it up, this is all going to change the shape. So I'll weld as much up on this as I possibly can on the car, and when I flip it over and do the other side, I'll do it off the car. But for now, all I'm going to do is just weld it in here. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go in, I'm going to weld all this up in here now, and have that done. Now, I got that all welded up inside. Again, never pretty. I got it clamped down. I'm going to make sure now that I haven't got it welded on, so I'm going to let it go. Oh, it's good. As you can see now, I got the panel made. Right, to show you there. Right. And if you look at the angles on it, you can look, it's not what you call a very straight panel, right? So it's not something you can easily make in a shrinker stretcher. You can do it, I'd say, but just the shape of it is very unusual. So now what I got to do is I got to go in here now and clamp this back in place. You can feel it fits in right nice now. And I'm going to mark this in along here, and I'm going to scribe that and trim that up so it's flush to the top of this one here and start working on this panel. Okay, I got to clamp back on. I can never talk about, you can never have enough vice grips. The more clamps I can get on that, the better. I got a fine selection of them. It's worth your while to make sure you have enough pairs of them. It makes life a lot easier. But now that I got that in place, I got my little scribe. All it is an old screwdriver that I sharpen the end of it. Some fellas out there going, oh my God, he's destroying tools. be honest, how many of us have never used a screwdriver for something other than a screwdriver? But anyway, I sharpen the top of it. It's only a little small screwdriver, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and unscribe this using the body of the car. So, now if you look there closely, you can actually see where I scribed it. Now I'm not going to cut that right off on that line. I'm going to leave a bit of it there because I want to have it so that I can do a final adjustment when I fix it on the car, and I can grind it down for the final fitment. So I'm going to go over now and I'm going to trim that off. Show you this here over here clamping device. Now the device is square, okay? We had this line on this here now that goes up across it. And you can see it don't even go straight. Like it's actually turning and flowing. Like it's over-exaggerating is doing this type of thing, right? And like the bottom of it's not even square. Like you look at the way this turns in here, right? The way this flows in here, comes in on the bottom here, and you look up across it. So it's not a 90-degree bend. You may think they're 90-degree bends, but they're not. And so making this in two pieces, we're actually getting the proper angles completely. Like if you just bent over a piece of steel and start shrinking this inside corner, this is going to stand up straight. This is going to have to be stretched out. This is going to be shrunk. You're going to have the living bejesus shrunk right out of this in order to try to get it to fit properly. I still got lots of steel here. Yes, it's a welded edge, but it's a lot stronger in my mind than it is to have a rolled edge, because by the time you start shrinking all this here and you're trying to get inside this here and have this shrunk, this is going to be pretty thin in here. And same with up along here, because this here all has a turn to come down, so this all has to be stretched up here. So it would take some time, and you won't be able to feel like the way I was fitting that in there. You won't be able to see this piece fitting in place as nice as the way I've done it, because you can do this here and it'll be a bit of a gap here and you won't be able to see it in the middle of it, because where's a piece of iron, you'll only see this upper edge is all you'll see. And if it lays nice there, you're happy with it. But down here, this could be in farther, which will affect putting the glass in. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that up now. Now I went ahead and I trimmed it off, but you can see in the light there, I still got some material left on it. You can still see the mark where I scribed it. And I'll show you why now. Because when you scribe a panel, and you lay the grinder there, if you put that at a bit of an angle, you're going to cut it low. Now when I fix this in place here now, down here is pretty well the right height, but over here is sticking up. I want to do my final adjustment right here. So I'm going to clamp that in place there now, and I'm going to show you how I adjust that. Now I got it clamped in place. As you can see, looking along the edge, it all sticks up a little tiny bit. And like, you know, you lay that edge on it there, you can see it's sticking up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this down so it's the same height as this here all the way around. And how I'm going to do that is with my grinder again. Now you can probably use a flat wheel for doing this. I prefer to do it on the car. You can take it off and mark it and trim it, trim it, trim it. But you can't go wrong when it's onto the car. When you grind down and you start grinding the car off, you know you've reached your point, right? So I'm going to go ahead down and grind all that down so it's the same height. As you watch me doing, all it is to grind it off. Now I can run my hand over that, look. And it's all flush. You look down across it, it's pretty well flush all the way along there to that edge. So now what I'm going to do now, I got that's my height there, see? Now I got my height figured out for the depth from there to there. So now I'm going to make the piece that'll go up along here. That will go on, it'll join onto that. So I'm going to go get a piece of steel now and start cutting it and fitting it to fit there. Now I got it roughed in. That never took me no time to do, as you can tell. It's just quick drawing it up, cutting it up. I don't waste my steel. I like starting with square pieces because it gives me a measurement, a length and a width to start with. This length, this length. It's a lot easier to figure out. Then you start trimming everything up. All in little pieces, I'll use them in something else. I got a fitting good here. It's a bit off here and it's way off here, but this has to be twisted downwards. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to clean all this up and I'm going to start mounting it right here first to the panel and start working this end up here, because this is going to be a problem up here because this metal is going to turn this way now in order to get to follow the quarter panel here, and I'll trim all that up after. So I'm going to go clean this up now and start putting it together. So here's what I got. I got it all cleaned up. I got it lined up here, so it's fitting pretty good right here in this section. About right along here, it fits good. It sticks in a bit here, and up here, it sticks, it's overlapped, as you can see here. Now the problem you got is when you look down this way here, there's an awful crown got to be changed on that there. So that piece of metal there is going to have to be worked down through here to get it to flow down. Like it's good right to here. And then after this, when it starts going up through here, this wants to roll off. I left this a little bit long because I know that when I start tweaking this is going to want to stretch. And this is going to want to pull away from this lipped edge. So then you'll end up having a gap here. That's why I left it a bit long here, thinking that. And same with down here. Right? So, like, I'm looking at this piece here now, and you know, it's going to be a bit tricky. So I can sit down and start beating it and beating it and beating it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld it on in here first, because I know that's going to be good there, right? And then I'm going to start working the panel as I'm going along, going up and coming up through here as well. I'm going to work the panel. And then I'm going to relieve this little roll. There's supposed to be a little roll going here, just a very slight concave. I'll do that after the fact because that fades out. Because I'm probably going to trim more of this off again. And of course, there's going to be a lot up here going to be trimmed off. But the reason why I'm doing it, because there's a lot of pitted rust in along here, as you can see. And I want to replace all that. It's pretty thin there, right? And in along here, all this is pretty thin. And there's holes there, as you can see. And so I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to fit that in place there. And I'm going to weld it on. A number of you have asked me the type of metal I use, the size. 18 gauge. I got that tacked in place, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start trimming up these edges and start working my way along the edges so I get a nice edge there. As you can see now, when I start pushing down on this here, that pulls back, see? So when I pull this right back, it's going to want to roll right out around the edge, see? Now I can force that in place there as I'm going down. So I'm talking about here, see this up here? When you push on it, you see what to pull out, no? That's why you leave a bit of excess up on this end here. There's the overlap here, so when you pushes on this here and that pulls out, you still got lots of material there welded at. Now I'm going to do the same process as what I done when I grind this side down flat. I do the same thing here. I'm going to take the grinder and I'm going to grind this edge off here. I'm going to grind the edge off of this panel. I'm going this way. You can see here now, I use this here as my guide, and I just grinded it off flush. A little bit of hair there. And now I'm going to turn around, I'm going to weld that right in there. Now you can see where after bending it over, this here at one point was way out here. Now that after bending it over and welded on, this is actually on this side of the panel now. So it pulled it over a good 1/4 of an inch to get this to roll up, the edge roll over. Now I have to cut a large section of this out of here. As you can see, I can put my finger in behind it there to get that back to there. So I'm going to cut that off with the grinder. So back so far, and then I got to cut a large section of this out too, right along here. I don't need all this. I'm going to follow, there's a line right here. I'm going to follow it, comes down through here, and I'll come down and follow it along there. So I'm going to trim all that up now. Now you can see that what I got done here, I cut this off on this edge here. And I went in here and I cut it off in here, and then I took the grinder and I grinded that off. And then I went in and I welded it back on. So now I got this cornered edge. This cornered edge now is figured out. Right along here, I got that all figured out. So I got to work this a bit out here. And I got to put a little rolled edge in along here. Well, not worried about right yet. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back and I'll weld all this up. Same as I did down here. Get all this solid wire still mounted to the car. Because I'm going to take all this off, do the back side of it, and grind and dress it all as well. So, but for now, let's get this welded up. Yeah, I got that made. So I got my panel actually put together now. I just got to fine tune it and cut it and fit it and dress it up more. But there's my panel. It's all one piece. You can see the shape of it. It's not a simple shape by no means. Now what I got to do now is a very slight crown on this here. Very slight one. That rolls over here and just fades out up to this edge here. So it rolls right along here and is back probably that far from the edge. So I'm just going to wing it. As if I don't, not like I don't wing the stuff, eh? I'm just right along there, see? And that will be my rolled edge area. I'll roll that little edge along there now. All I do is I just clamp it into the onto the table here, and right in here now I got to put a little bit of a rolled edge, and so I'm going to use the inside edge, and all I'm going to do is take my little T-dolly. Hasn't got to be nothing too harsh, right? Because it'll show. Move over here a bit. Just a slight bit more. A little concave. Goes right along there now. Now I got to put in place with a little contour in it. It's got to push up a small bit, but I can get that later on when I goes to weld it all in. I can push down on that. That'll help it hold it up, keep it from falling anyway when it goes welding it. Now, the whole thing I want to figure out now is how much of this do I want to keep. I know it was pitted up along here, and I need it below that little concave, so I'm just going to turn around. I'm going to cut it off somewhere around here, like so, because I don't need all that. And then same with down here. So I'm going to cut it along those lines like that. And then up here, I'm going to cut it just on this side of that line. Like so. And I'm going to square this off up here. Just like so, like that. Just to give me something smaller to work with. And see what it's all about up there. So I'm going to trim that up now and we'll test fit it again. Okay, I got the ends trimmed off. I got it trimmed up across here, and I got the top chopped off up here. So what I'm going to do now is I went in behind here, and I marked it with a marker on the back side here, as you can see right here. That's what I went and did. Now I'm going to leave that there because when all this moves back, this is going to move inwards. So I'm going to leave that mark there, and I cut on this side of the mark, and leave that there, and that will be my lower lip. Okay, so now I got that all trimmed back there. I know for a fact that this here is going to go straight down, but it's also got to go back. So mounting it now is going to be an issue because all this got to be moved a slight bit this way. Like it all got to go this way here for when all the pieces cuts out of the way. The problem you're going to run into is when you cut it out of it, where do you put it? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of clicos here for now, just so I can get it where it's roughly where it's going to be, and then when I get ready to put it in place, I'll slide it back a small bit off them holes there. Because the problem I'm having here now is once I cut all this out of the way here, this here can move around and you're not going to know. It can move up, move down, move in, move out. But if I got two reference holes to go by, I should be good. Then I can figure it out from there. Because I have a lot of cutting to do here. I'm going to mark this along here. Marker keeps riding up on everything. So that way I can cut a good portion of it out of the way. I'm going to scribe that up here. That's a good edge. And I'll cut that off so that butts there. That will be my butt edge. So I know I got to line up on that. And I'll drill 2 spots there now. And the reason why I'm doing all this first now, because I'm going to weld this up on the inside on both of these before I can grind this off flush. Because the problem you're going to make that weak there. And I want some nice edge here. I want to make it look like the way it was from factory. But in order to be able to do that, I need some beefiness on the back side of it. So I'm going to weld all the inside of this piece. But in order to weld that, I got to remove the section of the car. So I got 2 of these put there now. So I can go ahead and I can cut everything out of the way. Clean everything up. They got to be done. So, and now I got 2 reference points that I know is where the panel was originally. See? So now I'll cut all this out. Take all this panel out of it. Get all this out of the way. I'll go ahead and I'll take this panel here now and I'll weld it all up inside. All along here. And then I'll grind and dress all this up here. Make this look like an original piece then. A lot of the bottom section right here, the lip is totally gone. This is the inner structure of the car, and this is the original window lip. So a lot of it's rusted out. All I'm doing is just prying it back, finding spot welds, and then I grind the head off the spot welds and removing this upper section of the old quarter. When panels get really rusty, it's kind of hard to find the spot welds. All I did is I put that in behind it. I went down till I brought up, so I know it's a spot weld there, right? So all I'll do is I'll just grind the head there and move on from it. So I got it all cleaned up down there. Got all the metal gone, everything's cleaned up back. I'm going to paint all this now before it does anything else. It's from the factory. These came with brass in these corners, huh? And they're a nuisance. That is a raw nuisance right there, that brass. Because MIG welding won't stick to it. So I got to try to clean all that off. And so I'm going to have a bit of welding in this corner here. That's it still pretty solid there. a bit of a gap or whatever there, but this here is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to have to cut most of that out of it, grind it out of it, in order to get the weld to it. I haven't got torches here to heat up, melt it out, so. But that's it. Okay, now I'm going to go over now and over here and start welding this up. I'm going to weld this inside here, right along here, and weld this lip along here. And I'm going to grind this one flat here. I'm not going to worry about this inside edge because what's the strength there. And then I'm going to leave this one alone, and then I'm going to turn this over here, and I'm going to grind all this off in along here and in here, so make this look like an original piece. Alright, there it is, all welded up inside. Nothing pretty. I'm going to grind that up there now. All I'm going to do here now is I'm going to grind that flat there. Right? And so I get a nice sharp edge here, and I'll roll the edge over on it. I'll show you, I'll do a little test here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. And then I'm going to cut the inside edge down in here. Inside here, I'm going to cut a flat here on the bottom. I'm not going to touch nothing in here, and I'm not going to touch none of this here. All that's there for strength. So all I'm concerned about is out here looking good. And back bottom here, I'm cutting this flat because I want this to lay flat on the panel, because that's the way it sits. And I want no high spots along there. Here's what I got done. You can see it here now, got an edge here. All I'm doing is I'm grinding in this way, keeping it flat along that edge, and then grinding it flat along this edge. Like, don't go trying to round out your edges and everything. Get yourself a nice sharp edge, so sharp corner to start with. Once you got that straightened away, and you can see that you got a nice uniform line going around here, then you can go back and round out your edge. And what I'll do is I'll do it with this 24 disc or flap wheel if that's what you want to use. It's a 24 grit cutting wheel, a grinding disc. I buy them large ones. Here they are here. They're pretty big, right? They're fairly big, and I use them on my big grinder, and I cut them down so they last me longer that way. And I cut them down to sometimes to this size here. Look, that was originally a big one. See? But anyway, I'll show you that now when I smooth it up. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to grind the flush this here flat on this side here, grind flat on this side here, and then I'm going to roll the edge over. In here in this edge now, I got it cut with a stone, but I want to put a bit more of a sharper edge in there. And what I'm going to do that with is the cutting wheel. You got to be tricky. These are cutting wheels. All I use them is slightly. I don't use it hard, really rough or nothing like that. It's nice if you had a smaller stone to get in there. You get a sharper edge on it. But I just use these here just like very lightly. Don't force them, because they are not a grinder. Don't go using them for grinding stuff on the edge. So there you got it. Simple little panel. I'm going to go back in here now and weld up some of these spots along here. So I'm going to re-weld them again and finish dressing this all up. And have it ready so I can fit it back on the car, and I'll give you a closer look at that then. So there you have the panel all made, all dressed up, nice crisp edge all the way around the edge of it there. As you can see, just go from the bench here. You can see, nice round edge. Right, and you can lay it on the bench. You can tell how confused this piece is. Look, trying to make that out of one piece, maybe nuts. Here's the back side of it. And I grind it off the back here. Grind all that down there so that it fits flat on the panel when I puts it on. So that'll fit flat like that, see? But that's it. I always recommend, like, some people probably make up this piece and go ahead and weld it right in the car. I prefer to get this finished, just like the way I have it here now. So I haven't got to worry about none of that, making all that look nice. That's all done now. All I got to be concerned about now is this outer edge here and up along here, and the job is done. A few plug welds down along there. It's so much easier to do this work on the bench than it is to try to do it on the car. Make a nice little panel. This process, anywhere on the window, same process, 3 sections. I highly recommend doing it this way. Yes, you go out and buy a shrinker stretcher and you can do it. But you're going to get frustrated with it. And if you haven't got years experience at it, and you start working at it, and you go too far, you're going to have a fine mess made. Right? I just find this is a lot simpler. And I get, in my mind, I get a better finish. Because I got all the proper shapes before I even put it together. Anyway, let's go over and test fit that now. So there's a quick little test fit. It flows up nice here. In here it flows nice. Out here now, and I cut some butts it. It's going to have to be down here, it'll be raised up because I still got metal underneath this here. But right on this edge is good. Coming down around here is all seems to be pretty good. And I push that down. Over here I got a bit of work in here. You can see the gap I got here and this edge. I got this resting on top of this now. I haven't decided what I'm going to do here because this is a problem. And I got that brass to deal with there. I want to cut it all out of it and work with that. So I think I'm going to work this area in here first and give me some metal. Then I can probably just cut this right off here. I'll actually build this corner out to meet this here so I can move away from the seam. Welding in these seams can be trouble because then you got to grind them all back and everything. So I'd soon dress all that, have it all ready to go, so I got something solid to weld to. So I'm going to work on this here, get this sorted out better than what it is. All I intend to do with it is I'm going to add a piece on here. I'm going to weld it on, stretch this out here. I'm going to grind all this off down here, and I'm probably going to cut it off, weld a piece in here as well to get rid of this brass section, because that's going to be a nightmare when I try to weld all this together. Because right now, this is resting on top of this, and I got to lower it down. Okay, one last test fit. I went ahead now and I start to put all the spot weld holes in it, drill them out, 1/8 drill bit and a 1/4 bit. Well, step drill is what I used. Fits good along there. I had reworked this down here and trimmed it all up. I had to weld some pieces and everything in there and put that seam and everything back in there. That was all full of brass, remember that corner? I wasn't going to get into detail on that because it was pretty rough in there. It's a large chunk of brass there, and I wanted to be able to weld metal to it, so I figured I'd repair all this area first before I put my panel in. So this is ready to go in now. First thing I'm going to do now is take this off, paint the back side of this, and paint the other panel in here, and let that dry, and then fit that in place and start welding it in. All painted. Put that in place now. I got it clamped in place. I'm not clamping it right in because what I'm after now is to get this transition here right. This spot here and this spot over here are the 2 key spots that you're going to have to work on, because this is where a lot of fellas, like when they used to patch things up, would always run problems. There's not a lot you can do in these areas here when you patch them up. The molding's got to go right where it's got to go. Right? So if you has this here sticking out or sticking up, you're going to end up grinding, it's going to be too thin. So this here is what you do. You start your welding in these spots here. You weld this section here. That's done. Then you go over here and you line this spot up here and you weld that there. There's enough give in this here for that to move around. And get these edges here lined up looking good. And then work on all this out here. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to weld this section right here, and then I'm going to go over here and align this side up here. Alright, so I lined this spot up here, and I welded it in here, and I welded it down here. I got that done. So now this transition is good. Then I came over here, then I tweaked it, and I got this side here to line up. Ah, that's hot. And then I welded that side there. So now what I'm going to go in, I'm just going to go on now, and I'm going to spot weld all these spot welds, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do the cut and butt. I'm going to do the cut and butt first before I weld them up in there, in case it runs into any issues. I always does my spot welds last. And I'll get this here panel fitting good along here and up along here. So I went ahead and I cut and butt it. It's all flush mounted now, as you can see. All going along there. All flush mounted, all the way up through. I got the piece out. You can get access to the trunk. There's the piece that was there. So that's cut out and that's gone. So I got that done now. What I'm going to do now is go back and start welding it all up bit by bit. And like stay every inch or so, cool it with air, take your time with it, because right here you're probably going to get some warpage. Up here is a bit tight, you could get away with more heat in here, but treat it all the same. And next time you see that, I'll have it all welded up. There it is, all welded up, spot at a time, going along, do a bit at a time, cool it down, blow it off, that type of thing. Never be concerned about getting pretty welds. Said that many times, as long as you're getting lots of heat in it, lots of penetration, and you're good. Stay away from the warpage end of it. Alright, now I'm going to go grind all that up. See what it looks like. Okay, I have to grind it all up, and I'm after going back now and re-welding a few spots again, like I always do. I'm far from perfect, but pretty pleased with the way it came out. I'm going to go back now and I'm going to finish that all up now, dress that right up, and show you what the finished product looks like. Well, there you have it. Another one. All done and complete. I welded it up a couple of times afterwards and grinded it again. Nice transition coming from here. That's always the issue with doing around windows, is getting that spot here where you got to join on. Like if you're overlapping, you'll be left with a spot here. But you work on that area there and make that section look good. You haven't got to worry about filling it or nothing, right? Same one over here. And I got the line and everything put back in there and repaired all that section along there. And it looks good when it goes across this way. That's the same process for anywhere on the windshield. You can do the same thing up here in this corner. 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces. Same thing, right? Anywhere on the windshield, across the top. You could do the same thing, 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece. You would say, well, you just do that with a piece of angle iron, steel bent over, but there is a crown on that. So it can be tricky. And it's, you know, it can be done. But the corners usually troubles. And inside corners, like this here. Like I'm saying, make all this up in sections and you'll get all your angles properly, welded together. And like you look at that there, you can't tell now that that's been welded together. It all looks professional there now, the way it's done. And it's all reinforced on the back side where it's all welded and whatnot. And do all the dressing off the car, do all your grinding. You know, that type of thing. Have it all looking good, so then all you got to worry about is where you're welding it in. So this edge always looks good, right? But that's the key to doing all these, is having a nice clean edge. Anyway, that's it for that one. And until next time.